An imam just told Pauline Hanson she's not racist, and the reason he gave, nobody in Labour saw it coming. This wasn't a debate. There were no cameras from the ABC, no moderator trying to keep things balanced. It was just Pauline Hanson and Imam Tawhidi, sitting across from each other, having the kind of conversation that most politicians are too scared to even start. And the first thing Pauline does, she asks him straight, "Do you consider me to be a racist person?" No dancing around it, just puts it on the table. His answer, think about that for a second. An imam, the kind of person Labour trots out to condemn Hanson every other week, just pulled the rug out from under their entire argument, in one sentence. But here's where it gets interesting.
Imam Tawhidi, thank you. It's lovely to meet you, and thank you for getting in touch with me. You know what I want to know, and a lot of other people would like to know. Do you consider me to be a racist person?
Greetings, and thank you very much for having me. No, you're not a racist, firstly, because Islam is not a race. I think you have arguments that many are trying to avoid. Many Muslims and non-Muslims are trying to avoid. I think you speak for a lot of Australians, a lot of people whose voice should be heard. At the same time, you do speak for a lot of Muslims that are victims of hardline, radical jihadism, this whole spread of jihadi atmospheres every now and then. So you do speak for them when you say you want to protect the borders and clean up the environment, correct?
I value our country, the lives that have been lost and sacrifices made for the freedoms that we have. And I suppose my concern is I don't want Australia to become a lot of other countries, or like a lot of other countries around the world. Lebanon, what's happened there, what's happening in France, even England, and if you see the problems they're having there. Am I right in what I say about, we need to protect our borders and who we allow into the country and, trying to stop those radicals coming in?
It's very simple. A respected country deserves respected borders. And no country that has a good reputation would allow anyone to come in and just walk into its borders. Now we have a great advantage, unlike Israel, unlike other countries. We don't have terrorist neighbors, we have a beautiful ocean. So half of the work has already been done. We don't need to worry about someone coming into our fence. The other thing is, how do we filter who comes in by boats and who comes in by plane, and what do we do with them? And protection is a basic human right. I mean, why did I come to Australia? Why did my parents come? I was a young boy.
You were born in Iran?
I was born in Iran, Qom.
Yeah.
Why did we come to Australia? One of the main reasons is because the radicals can't reach us here. We're living amongst a peaceful community, a peaceful environment. All of a sudden we grow up here. And I don't speak for myself alone. Many Muslims are like this. Many, many. Who would want to flee Lebanon, flee Iraq, and then have the radical who comes from the very community that butchered his family move in next door? Who would want that?
Imam, you've been criticised for being outspoken on these issues, and you are challenging other Muslims in the country. Tell me your opinion about the Grand Mufti in Australia. Do you think he represents, Muslims in this country the way that he should be, or have we put him up on a pedestal when he shouldn't be on that pedestal?
You've asked me a question, and I'm a very honest person.
Yeah.
Allow me to answer you. Firstly, Australia is not a Muslim country, and its government is not an Islamic government. Muftis belong in Islamic governments. Saudi Arabia and its mufti, Syria and its mufti, Lebanon and its mufti. Governments that have a large Muslim population that, for example, represent 50, 60, 70% of the nation, of the army, them having a mufti is reasonable. Mecca's next door, Medina's next door, no problem. The Shia Muslims, the Grand Ayatollahs, the hierarchies, they're living within their own sacred sites. In Australia, We don't have the need for a mufti to begin with. Any religious figure that's Muslim, there's no need for it. But the Christians have their cardinals, and the Jewish community has their rabbinical organizations. The Muslims also need people to manage their affairs. And I say, yes, we need a head federation, a figure. But this person needs to be suitable for the position. In my opinion, none of the muftis have been suitable. The first one came out and said, women are like cat meat, Tajuddin al-Hilali. The second one, who passed away, Fahmi Naji, came out on his first day in office, said, I'm not sure if Osama bin Laden is responsible for 9/11. That is his first statement, and he passed away. And the third one is this current mufti that's been here for 5-6 years. What title, what position, have you ever heard of a position, the Grand Mufti of Australia and New Zealand? We're in Australia. What does New Zealand have to do with your job? This whole idea of let's take control over the affairs of all Muslims. Firstly, not all Muslims are Sunni. And not all Sunni Muslims follow him. We have the Ahmadiyya Muslims who are peaceful. We have many Muslims that don't take their fatwas from him. I think the title in itself is misleading. The Mufti of Australia is misleading. He doesn't speak for all Muslims. He speaks for his own community. And I will say something. Our Prime Minister and the opposition, so Bill Shorten and Malcolm Turnbull, it really hurts when I see them visiting a man. You can see the pictures, smiling at him, rubbing against him. This is the same man, the Grand Mufti, when he was in Abu Dhabi, wrote an article or a book, and it's translated. The Kaiser Trad translated it for him. And in the book he says the West brings us nothing but diseases. And he went to Palestine in the Gaza Strip and he met with the authorities there and he said, I'm proud to be on the land of jihad, learning from its sons. This is on the record. I'm not...
Yeah.
It's all proven.
So you can understand why when we hear these remarks, that's why I get very upset, and a lot of other Australians get upset. But here we have the Prime Minister, you know, putting on a function with the marquee and had them in the marquee, and it's like, you know, I get upset about this, and so do other Australians. And, you know, what is the answer to this? How do we find a balance? Now, I can understand, I've met Muslims here who are supportive of me, and they've said, Pauline, you are right in what you're doing, you know, because they want peace. They want to live in this country in peace. They've left their own countries to come here for peace. But we've got these ones out here that are radicals, and we don't want it. I don't want them here. What do we do to stop the radicals coming into this country?
That's a question for the Immigration Department. And the answer is very simple. Strengthen your borders. Don't make it as easy as it is now to come in for anyone. But I believe that the only way we could solve the problem is that if the authorities and the Prime Minister understand who they are dealing with. The Grand Mufti isn't what they think he is. Many people think when I speak like this, I want to be the Mufti. I want a female Mufti.
Oh.
Yes, I've said publicly last year, I want a female to be a Mufti for a change. The whole National Imams Council, there's not one female on the list in the website.
Tawhidi didn't just defend her, he said she speaks for a lot of Muslims. The ones who fled Lebanon, fled Iraq, fled the very radicalization that she's been warning about for years. He said those people came to Australia because the radicals couldn't reach them here. And the last thing they want is to watch that change. That's not Pauline Hanson talking. That's an Imam. Now they get into the Grand Mufti. And this is the part that should make every Labour MP deeply uncomfortable. Because Tawhidi doesn't hold back. He points out that previous Grand Muftis made statements that were by any reasonable standard alarming. One said the West brings nothing but diseases. Another publicly questioned whether bin Laden was responsible for 9/11s on his first day in office. And yet both Turnbull and Shorten were photographed with the current Mufti, rubbing shoulders, acting like this bloke represents mainstream Australian Muslims. Tawhidi says he doesn't, not even close. Then they hit the welfare question. And this is the moment that will make a lot of people uncomfortable, because it's said by a Muslim Imam, not a talkback host. He calls Centrelink the biggest mosque in Australia. His words, not Pauline's. He says the Muslims watching would laugh because they know it's true. People lining up at 8 a.m. for appointments. Government's too scared to say anything about it. Meanwhile, Tawhidi describes a family in Perth, 11 kids, paid off multiple homes in no time, and says the Australian government just throws its hands up. That's the part Labour doesn't want replayed. But then the conversation takes a turn that nobody expected. Tawhidi tells her directly, the only ones who can solve the radicalism problem are Muslims themselves, and he says there are brave ones willing to stand up. Not the misguided moderates who stay silent, but the ones who'll call it out. And then he offers to work with her, an imam, offering to work with Pauline Hanson, against the radicals, on record. Now ask yourself, why hasn't this conversation been on every front page? Why hasn't any Labour minister sat down and had this exact discussion? They'll host the Grand Mufti in a marquee on the lawn of Parliament House, but they won't have this conversation. Tawhidi puts it simply, a respected country deserves respected borders. Not out of fear, not out of racism, out of respect for the country and for the people who came here legally to escape the very thing that lacks borders invite in. Pauline Hanson has been saying this for years. She's been called every name in the book for it. Turns out, the person who agreed with her most clearly wasn't a politician, wasn't a commentator, wasn't even Australian-born. He was an imam, born in Iran, who chose Australia specifically because it was safe. Maybe that's the conversation worth having.